Hello and welcome to Living Life Naturally. I'm your host, Lynn Wadsworth, a board certified holistic health practitioner and a certified wellness cooking instructor, and I'm here to help you walk in your own truth as you enter into this new and exciting season of life. So, here on the podcast, we explore everything that helps you thrive, not just survive, in this powerful season of life. We talk about natural, holistic solutions for your health, your hormones, your energy, and your mindset, because midlife isn't the end of the story, it's the beginning of an entirely new chapter. So before we dive into today's conversation, I'd love to invite you ladies to come and join me in my free Facebook community, the Energized Healthy Women's Club. It's a beautiful space where I share weekly tips, strategies, and inspiration to help you boost your health, vitality, and well-being in natural, practical ways. So grab your favorite cup of tea, get cozy, and let's get into today's episode. So, welcome everyone to another episode on the Living Life Naturally podcast. And of course, as you know, you hear lots about midlife, menopause, perimenopause, and the whole gambit and range of things that might interest you. And if we haven't covered something you're interested in, please let me know. I'm more than happy to do that for you. But today I'm thrilled to have with me Katie Hardie. She is a board certified holistic nutritionist and FDN practitioner, and she helps high performers reclaim their energy, optimize nutrition, and achieve lasting results through bio-individual, science-driven programs. And she combines her lived experience as an athlete, corporate professional, and mom with advanced training in nutrition, performance psychology, and functional health. Now, her programs integrate functional labs, which is a superb add-on, personalized nutrition, and intentional recovery to restore the gut and hormonal health, plus prevent burnout and build resilience. So Katie is recognized for creating sustainable, result-driven strategies that actually empower her clients to thrive at their peak. So thrilled to have you here today with us, Katie.
Thanks so much for having me, Lynn.
And tell our listeners where you're joining us from.
I am up in Winter Park, Colorado in the mountains.
Beautiful. Nothing better than waking up to the mountains. Yeah.
It's pretty great. We have a bunch of trees right outside the house. It almost feels like a tree house.
Uh, so we're going to discuss a couple of things, but I want to start off just with asking you why you started in this line of work.
Yeah, so I grew up in a medical family. My dad's a retired physician, mom a retired physical therapist, so always had that health influence and teed myself up for taking that coursework to go down that line. And I kind of realized along the way that the way that system's built is kind of upon the masses, recommendations for the masses, and I follow those recommendations and found myself kind of in a hole with hormone, adrenal health, and working harder and more, but not smarter,
Hmm.
and negatively impacting me. So I had the drive, I had, the knowledge that was out there, but it wasn't designed for me. And so that's kind of where I shifted more into the psychology, nutrition, culinary world, strength and conditioning, because I really wanted to create plans that were individualized for people so they could maximize their peak potential, whatever that is, if it's, athletic or corporate world or just, personal. And so it's more of an approach toward optimizing, so like good to great versus fixing dysfunction. And that's, same concepts of like coursework and topics, just a little different angle of how you approach it.
One of the things I know before we hopped on here that we talked about was a question that I've talked about but haven't gone into depth really with the whole topic. But I think that many years in our lives, we don't know that we're supposed to listen to our body. And I think we get into perimenopause and everything's changed and we have no clue how to listen to our bodies. So, can you talk to people about how they can best do that?
Yeah, I think this is one of the hardest and most
Mm,
important aspects
mm,
because so many women, whether it's through career, being family, participant, just hard-driven person, you're actually rewarded for ignoring those signals. And so if it's at work, ignoring like boundaries or your own hunger needs or your own energy needs and kind of blowing through with more caffeine, longer hours, less sleep, or when you've got kids, they're always needing something, so you're always giving. And then, if you have a partner, they're appreciative when you're doing the work. So nobody's like, hey, good job for carving out your me time. But lots of people not only appreciate, but kind of start expecting your your giving. And you also see this with a lot of providers where people go on, especially during perimenopause, and they'll explain their symptoms like, oh, either that's normal, carry on, or
right.
you shouldn't be feeling that way. I don't know why you're feeling there that way, therefore you're probably doing something wrong. And so I think a lot of women get trained to ignore or dismiss or push through those symptoms that our body's
Right.
trying to give us.
Right. And it doesn't help with the lab testing because I know I've been through it, my daughter's been through it. You go to a doctor, you ask for a blood test, and a blood test doesn't give you any ideas. So I remember my daughter saying to me a while ago, I think I'm in perimenopause, but my hormones all come back great. And I'm like, you really can't look at the tests that you're getting. You really need to go by your symptoms to know if you're in menopause or perimenopause. So, how do we get around that? How do we better take care of ourselves, listen to our bodies, and even go in to see a provider or somebody like you that can do some testing?
Well, I think that's a great point you raise about the labs because I see this, you probably see this all the time too, where people come back and they say, oh, my labs look great,
Mm,
but then they don't feel great. And so they're trying to figure out what that discrepancy is. And just for a clarification, in case people don't know, our labs are based upon the average population of the people taking the labs, and the ranges can vary by state and by lab. And what they're looking for is dysfunction. They're not looking for optimal function. So everything is quote unquote fine until there's a major problem that typically requires a pharmaceutical intervention, right?
mm, right.
But, if we're looking at something like blood sugar versus fasting insulin, blood sugar is covered by insurance. And when it's out of range, we can now prescribe insulin, right? But if you're looking at fasting insulin and it's out of range, there's no corresponding diagnosis. So it doesn't mean everything's fine. It just means you're not bad enough to need like to really have a drug or to make some serious, serious life changes. What it's telling us is, hey, things aren't great. Now would be a really good time to do something before it's a bigger problem. But just the way our insurance in our healthcare system is, it's
Mm,
designed for symptom management, not actual health care. So that's a huge distinction to make because I see this all the time where people are like, oh, I'm sure I don't need to run my lab because I'm sure, or my blood work because it looks fine. And then when I look at it, what we're looking, like you and I are looking at is optimal ranges where people feel good and great. And so back to the hormones, the lab ranges for hormones for being dysfunctional are much greater. Like you have a wider range where you can fall in and still be quote unquote fine. Whereas for testosterone, for example, people feel better when it's higher. And so a functional range, because testosterone not only helps sex drive, it helps motivation, helps with your muscle repair, recovery, and definition. It helps with a lot of things. And just because you're not in a really drastically bad spot doesn't mean you're really feeling decent at all.
And these are all things to remember when we're thinking about how to listen to our body, because if we can especially start noting down what you're feeling, what you were doing when you were feeling it, or different times of the month, and go in equipped to talk to your provider, you really have to advocate for yourself. They're not going to automatically do this kind of testing for you to find out, oh, yeah, I'm at optimal health here.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So, when we're thinking back to listening to your body, are there some particular cues that would help a woman know that, hey, my hormones are totally out of whack?
Yeah, so I like to even start with the food that we eat because that's our energy production
Mm.
throughout the day. And that can tell our body we're safe or we're in a state of stress. And the reason I like to start here is because your stress hormones are upstream of your sex hormones. And so when our body's under perceived, it can be actual, but the main thing is our body perceiving this threat as or this situation as a threat. And when that really throws off our cortisol, our stress, our typically recognized stress hormone, and then that's going to impact our DHEA, which is the counter repair recover hormone. And then I'd say the hormone that a lot of women really start noticing the dropping levels is with progesterone. So higher stress is going to impact our progesterone more immediately. And with perimenopause, that's typically the hormone that starts to drop first. The reason that matters or symptoms that we're looking for like feedback from our body would be a little more low grade anxiety, just kind of on edge a little bit more, not sleeping well, a little quicker to trigger with things that didn't used to bother you. And so that can come from the lower progesterone, that can come from the higher cortisol, that can come from your blood sugar levels from the food that you're eating or not eating being dysregulated. So it's, a cascade effect, but I do like to start with the food piece and with awareness, helping train people by checking in just 1 to 2 hours after you eat. Because that's something we're all very busy people, but I like to think about being productive, not just busy. So take a pause because I had somebody yesterday say, well, when I'm at work, I don't have time to check in. I'm like, "No, you don't have to like walk somewhere to do it. You're just like, it's a mental check. It's, being aware. And that's part of the programming that I think has been imprinted on us that I have to take care of everybody else first. And they're mutually exclusive. You can work and you can also check in with your own body's feedback. It's not like one or the other. It takes 10 seconds. It's just
Right.
remembering to do it and actually doing it. And what is your body telling you? Because we're so used back to what we were saying at the beginning of just pushing through or it doesn't mean anything anyway, so just ignore it.
Yeah, that's so true. When I was working in the corporate world, I had a very high stress level job and didn't understand much about stress. But when I became a health coach and was starting out with it part-time, just those little things of things that you can do for 30 seconds that nobody around you notices that you're doing, but relieves so much stress. And I think for women, we do carry our stress differently to men, and we really need to learn how to manage that in a way that doesn't make you feel it's overwhelming.
Yep. Back to the things that don't take much time, breathing. And
Yes.
you don't have to make it like this really egregious action or like sound, but it's literally just slowing down the breath. And that can be for a single breath, ideally maybe a minute, like you're saying, 30 seconds to a minute. You can instantaneously change your nervous system just through breath. And that's exactly how you do it. And for athletes, when you get good at that, that helps transition you into a flow state. So, or at work, if you're the corporate athlete, to more like focused, productive state. And so it isn't just about being healthier, it's about having higher output or being more effective, productive versus just busy.
Right. So I want to kind of change here a minute because I know that in perimenopause and midlife, and especially if we start with any kind of sickness, inflammation plays a huge role in how we feel. And I know that people don't always realize how inflammatory some of our foods can be. So while whole foods are good. Maybe they're not good for everyone, but can you address that?
hmm So I actually do a seasonal cleanse challenge every spring and fall, and we target the inflammatory foods. So it's not saying you can never have them like throughout life. It's good to be aware of what they are and how your body responds to them because typically most people are swimming in this 24/7. So the inflammatory foods that we like to focus on are sugars, alcohol. And this can vary, you're from England, so I'm curious how that quality is there. But like our dairy and gluten
Excellent.
here, yeah, our
Yeah.
dairy and gluten here are not. And so it's not like all dairy, all gluten's terrible. It's how we've changed it here and what we've done to it here. So because we're in America, we pull them for a little bit of time, processed soy. So pulling some of those foods for a targeted period of time, just so people's bodies can get a little breather and actually experience it. And then you add them back strategically. And that's that feedback your body's giving you. When you
Mm.
have a break from it, then you can actually experience what that relationship is, not just physically, but mentally too. Because that's something I notice with people is how controlling like addictive foods can be, and inflammatory foods often are more addictive. And when we have an emotional reaction to a food, like, no, I cannot give that up for 4 days, or they cry, or they're angry, or whatever it is, that's usually a pretty good sign that that has more control over you than
Yeah.
it being neutral to you. So those, the inflammatory foods tend to be the fun ones, right?
Right. And just as a side note, last year my husband and I took a cruise around the UK, and I suffer with migraines and pretty badly, even though I'm past all of the hormone stuff. And I actually forgot my migraine medication and I was really panicking. But just going around the UK eating their foods, I had not one headache the whole time I was gone, and my digestive system was better, and I just felt so much more energetic. So I know that there's so much over here we need to do for our food. So it's really important to focus on the things that you're talking about to really reverse what the day-to-day eating is doing to us.
Yep. And it can really make a significant change. I had a gal this last fall who had this really bad elbow pain and done all the PT, all the,
Mm,
exercises. And she said a week and a half into it, it was gone and it hasn't come back since.
wow.
And she's not maintaining that way like 100%, but it was enough to give the system a break and like bring down the inflammation because if you're constantly picking your scab, it's really tough to heal. But
Right.
if you just like put a band-aid over it so you can't touch it for a few days, a lot of healing can take place.
Yeah, that's true. So, are there any other specific labs that women in perimenopause might want to consider looking into?
Yeah, I love running the Dutch Plus because
Mm,
that is a urine and saliva. So it's essentially capturing your hormones over the course of an entire day. And I like to combine that with the blood work because blood work is considered gold standard. And that's if somebody's going to get into bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, they're going to use blood levels. And what the Dutch shows us that the blood can't is a longer period of time. So your hormone production tends to be higher in the morning, which is when they're going to draw the blood. And then you can kind of compare, like if people's hormones are starting to fade or, like decrease, they still might have that push in the morning, but they might drop more throughout the day. So you can capture more of that average over the course of the day. You also get your stress hormone profile, which so much gets dismissed or overlooked. So we have our cortisol pattern our body is expected to see where it should spike in the morning and then drop. It's called a cortisol awakening response or a CAR, if you've heard that. So it's a sign of resilience. And it's also a sign of good recovery, just being balanced with your recovery, like sleep recovery, but also recovery throughout the day. And then it will tell us what we're producing as well as what's available at the cellular level because it should be the same. But if our liver's all congested, which is also a
mm,
downstream symptom of chronic stress, that also correlates with higher cholesterol, more like, closing down of the thyroid function, so slowing down of the thyroid function. There's a lot of different things that are going to come downstream of a dysregulated cortisol pattern and production and clearance. So I like to look at all that because stress hormones are so much, or sex hormones are so much more than just progesterone, estradiol, testosterone. Your cortisol, your DHEA, and the patterns that they have throughout the day are a huge, huge player. And so many people just plug the downstream, like get on, this patch or pellets or whatever it is without considering what is the stress profile going on
Mm.
that we can actually effectuate some change. And you might not need any of that, or you might not need as much of that. And if your liver's all congested and we start jamming a bunch of hormones in, you're going to have a lot of negative side effects that you don't love. And so I think it's really important to look at the whole picture,
Mm.
kind of through that functional lens, in my opinion.
Mm. So I know that you can't just go into your GYN office and say, I want a Dutch test. So tell people what would be their best option to do something like that.
So, I mean, there are starting to be a lot more providers
Oh,
who
okay.
are more functionally minded that way. So that's something that I run. Like certain healthcare providers will have been trained on how to do that. So, for example, I do that with my clients. GI maps, stool tests, blood work. You can get into toxins and all food sensitivities. But that is a good place to start because um, there's one thing with getting results, but then what do you do with the results, right? So, like, as you work with
Right.
people,
Yeah.
that's the sweet spot, or, that's like where the sweet stuff happens because it isn't like, here are the results, good luck. I used to do one-off sessions and then people are left with more questions than answers. I will say that's a great thing about Function Health, where people have started getting more of the results, but the problem is there's no plan for the person and no like ongoing, I'm sure they have like ongoing support you can add on, but I'm again back to like my values. I value somebody I can work with who knows me and all my stuff and can make recommendations and have an ongoing relationship with.
Right.
And I think that's how you probably like to work with
Yeah.
people too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where is the best place for people to find you and to
Mhm.
know about what you do?
Yeah, my website's mypeak365.com. My
Okay.
Instagram is the same handle. And I just, like to integrate different, like quick recipes, just health, tidbits. I always have some group events going on as well as one-on-one work. So great place to check out if anything resonates.
Okay. And I think that you offer a complimentary consultation, correct?
I do. Yep, that is right on that homepage up top.
Okay.
So, mhm.
Okay. I will be sure to have all of that in the show notes. And is there anything you like to share with our audience before we hop off?
I would say, especially during perimenopause, any of those years, one of the biggest things you can do is carve out a little space in your day for you. Like maybe claim it on the calendar, but have it where it's protected. Protect some time for you because once you're able to fill your cup up a little bit more, you're going to be the best version of you. And if giving to others is a value, you're going to be better at that.
Right. Yeah, I so agree 100%. So thank you so much. This is great information. I hope some people reach out to you so they can find out more, especially about the testing, because it's really, to me, an important part of the process. So appreciate all of your input and all of your knowledge on this, Katie.
Well, I sure appreciate you having me.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You do the same.
Thank you so much for spending your time with me today on the Living Life Naturally podcast. I really hope you enjoyed today's conversation and that it inspired you, encouraged you, and reminded you that midlife isn't something to endure, it's a season to embrace. So if you enjoyed this episode, would you do me a huge favor? Please take a minute to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you'll be the first to know when new episodes drop. So until next time, ladies, remember, you are strong You are wise and you are just getting started. Take care of yourself because you are so worth it.